I supported my boyfriend for years, but he left me for another woman the moment I got a job offer in another city. I met Adam in college, right when we were both figuring out who we were. He wasn't like the other guys. He was quiet, but had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when he spoke. It felt easy to talk to him, and before long, we were spending hours together, laughing about everything and nothing at all. He had big dreams. I could see it in the way he talked about his goals, the kind of future he imagined for himself. I admired his drive, his ambition. I thought, this is it. This is the person I want to build my life with. I believed in him. I believed in us. When we graduated and the real world hit, it wasn't as easy as we thought. Adam had trouble landing a full-time job in his field. He was talented, no doubt about it, but the industry was competitive, and every opportunity seemed to slip away just as fast as it appeared. So, he took on freelance work, the kind of gigs that didn't pay much, but it was something. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I started working full-time right away. I had a steady job, good pay, and for the first time, I felt like I was moving forward while Adam kept struggling. At first, I didn't mind. I knew he would get there. He just needed more time. So I made sure to support him in any way I could. I covered our rent when things got tight, I picked up the groceries, and I did it without complaining. After all, we were in this together, right? For better or for worse. I even started working overtime to make sure we could afford little luxuries, like going out for dinner every now and then. I wanted to see him happy, see him finally succeed, even if it meant sacrificing a little of my own freedom. But it was fine because I knew he was working hard, and eventually it would pay off. But as the months went by, I noticed something. The more I gave, the more he seemed to take. He'd show up late for dates, or worse, cancel them altogether. I'd be the one to plan everything, the vacations, the weekend getaways. But he never seemed to care much about it. I'd push him to talk about his career plans, and he'd say, "It's complicated," or "I'm just figuring it out." But it never felt like he was really making progress. It was becoming clear that I was the only one who was moving forward in our relationship. I had a steady job, friends, a life outside of our apartment. He had ideas, but they stayed ideas. I didn't want to be a nag, but I started pushing him harder. I tried to motivate him, suggesting courses he could take, job fairs he could attend, things that would help him move forward. But it was always the same. He'd nod, say he would look into it, but nothing ever changed. The frustration started to build, but I kept it to myself. I loved him, and I was patient. I told myself it would all come together. And then, one day, after another long day of work, I came home and found him on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV. No job interview that day, no progress, just a blank stare. That was the moment I realized that while I was out there working and pushing forward, he was content to sit back and let me carry us both. The turning point came when I received an unexpected job offer. It was for a position in another city, an opportunity I couldn't turn down. It was exactly what I'd been working toward for years, the kind of job that would jumpstart my career and offer me a chance to grow. I had told Adam about it when the offer came in, and I had hoped he would be excited for me. But instead, he didn't say much. He just looked at the floor, his hands resting on his lap. "You're going to take it, right?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I could see the hesitation in his eyes, but I thought nothing of it. Of course, I was going to take it. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The idea of passing it up just to stay in the same town, working the same job, felt unimaginable. But when I mentioned how excited I was about the future, about moving to a new city and starting fresh, I noticed something that bothered me. He didn't seem thrilled for me, not like I thought he would be. There was this odd look on his face, like he was nervous, maybe even resentful. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" I asked him, genuinely wanting to know how he felt. "I know it's a big change." He shrugged it off. "It's your choice. You need to do what's best for you." The answer didn't sit right with me, but I figured he was just overwhelmed by the change. The truth was, I hadn't fully processed how much this job offer meant to me and how hard it would be to leave, but what made it even harder was realizing he wasn't the one pushing me to go. He wasn't excited for me. He wasn't encouraging me. As the days went by, the tension between us grew. We didn't talk much about the move. We barely talked at all, really. I spent more time researching apartments, looking at the city, planning out my next steps. He spent more time on the couch, scrolling through his phone, avoiding the subject altogether. And then, one night, after a long day of packing and sorting through things, I came home early to find him sitting at the kitchen table, his hands clutching a piece of paper. He looked up at me when I walked in, but he didn't say anything at first. There was an almost awkward silence hanging in the air. "I've been thinking about it," he said finally, his voice tight. "I think we should break up." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't know how to react. I stared at him, unsure if I had heard him right. "What?" I finally managed to say. "What do you mean?" His eyes flicked down to the paper in his hand, and then he pushed it toward me. "I've been seeing someone else. I didn't want to hurt you, but I think it's time we went our separate ways." It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The one person I had been sacrificing for, the one person I had supported through everything, had been seeing someone else. All that time, all those years, and he had never truly been committed to me. I was the one putting in the work. I was the one making the sacrifices, and he was already moving on, finding comfort in someone else. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating the space between us. My mind couldn't process them fast enough. I kept staring at him, waiting for him to take it back, to say that it was some sick joke, but his face stayed cold and calm. There was no humor in his eyes, no hint of remorse. The truth of what he said hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't just the breakup, it was the fact that I had been living in a lie. I'd been the one holding things together, the one who supported him emotionally and financially, while he was busy with someone else. "Who?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. My voice was tight, shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. He hesitated for a second, not wanting to answer, but I could see it in his eyes that he had no real excuse for his actions. Finally, he said, "Her name is Emily. We met a while ago, and it just happened." I blinked, trying to process the reality of the situation. Emily. I didn't know her. I had no idea who she was, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that my whole life had been built on a foundation of trust, and now it was crumbling. He had cheated on me, and I hadn't even known. The realization was like a cold slap across the face. I stood there in silence for what felt like hours, just trying to make sense of everything. How long had this been going on? How many times had I made excuses for him, defended him to my friends, pretending like everything was fine? I thought about all the nights I spent comforting him when he had doubts about his career, all the times I stood by his side, even when he wasn't giving anything back. I had put my own dreams on hold to help him achieve his. And this is what I got in return? A betrayal? A lie? "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you end it before it got this far?" His gaze shifted, uncomfortable now. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could fix it, make things work with both of you, but I couldn't. And I didn't know how to tell you the truth. I know I messed up." His words felt empty, hollow, like he was just saying whatever he thought would make me feel better. But there was nothing he could say that would make this better. The truth was right there in front of me, and I had to face it, no matter how much it hurt. "You couldn't tell me the truth, but you could keep lying to me?" I shot back, my voice growing steadier, sharper. "You couldn't be honest with me, even after everything I did for you?" He didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't sorry. Not really. He was just sorry that he got caught. "I can't do this," I said quietly, shaking my head. "I can't keep fighting for something that doesn't exist anymore." And just like that, everything we had was gone. It wasn't a dramatic scene, no shouting or throwing things around. It wasn't a scene from a movie where we both cried and begged for forgiveness. It was just over. The realization settled in like a heavy weight, and I walked away from him for the last time. I didn't even look back. The next few days were a blur. I didn't know what to do with myself. I went through the motions of daily life, going to work, cooking dinner, taking care of myself, but none of it felt real. Everything I had believed in, everything I had fought for, was shattered, and I felt like I was standing in the rubble, trying to make sense of it all. I avoided him. He called and texted, but I ignored him. I didn't need to hear more of his excuses. I didn't need him to justify his actions or try to explain them away. What he had done was unforgivable. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was the betrayal of trust. The fact that I had been there for him, giving him everything I had, while he had been lying to my face. And now, when I needed him to step up, when I needed him to show me that he valued me, he chose someone else. But as much as it hurt, as much as I wanted to scream and cry, I knew that I couldn't let him break me. I couldn't let him make me feel like I wasn't worth fighting for. It wasn't just about the relationship anymore. It was about me, my self-worth, my future. I had spent so many years trying to make him happy, trying to make him feel supported, that I had lost sight of my own happiness. I had been so wrapped up in him and his struggles that I had forgotten to take care of myself. And now, it was time to change that. I deleted all his messages, blocked his number, and erased any trace of him from my life. It wasn't about being petty or trying to punish him. It was about moving on. It was about taking back control of my life, no longer letting him hold power over my happiness. The first few nights alone were the hardest. I felt lost, empty, and broken. But then I started to focus on me. I started to reconnect with the things that made me happy: reading, going to the gym, spending time with my friends. I began to rebuild myself piece by piece without him. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be moments when I'd miss him, when I'd feel the emptiness in my chest. But I also knew that I was stronger than this. I wasn't going to let him define me anymore. I deserved more. I deserved someone who valued me, someone who wouldn't take me for granted, someone who would give back as much as I gave. And that was the beginning of my journey. It wasn't going to be perfect. It wasn't going to be without pain, but it was mine. And I was ready to move forward. Without him, the days that followed weren't easy, but they weren't as difficult as I expected. When I finally cut Adam out of my life, I was left with a strange feeling of emptiness mixed with relief. It felt like I had been carrying a heavy load for so long, and now that I had set it down, I wasn't sure how to function without it. The first few weeks were tough. I had to find my way back to myself, piece by piece. I focused on small things, like taking long walks in the evening, getting back to my hobbies, and spending time with friends who had supported me all along. I stopped trying to force myself to heal overnight because I realized that healing doesn't work on a schedule. I also started to put more effort into my career. I had been so focused on Adam, so focused on helping him achieve his dreams, that I had let my own career take a back seat. But now, with the pressure gone, I could finally breathe and think about what I wanted for myself. At work, I started pushing myself more. I made suggestions in meetings I would have previously kept to myself. I took on projects I had been too hesitant to try before. Slowly but surely, I regained the confidence I had lost when I had been consumed by our relationship. I remembered the ambitious woman I used to be before Adam came along, and it felt empowering to rediscover her. But there were still moments of doubt. Moments when I questioned myself. Was I doing the right thing? Was I strong enough to keep going forward without him? One evening, a couple of weeks after the breakup, I was scrolling through my phone when I saw a message from my best friend, Maya. She had been with me through all of this, always offering support but never pushing me to make any decisions I wasn't ready to make. Her message was simple. "How are you doing? I know it's hard, but you're stronger than you think. Let's catch up soon. Love you." I put my phone down and smiled. Maya had always been a constant in my life, and her support meant everything. I decided that I needed to see her to talk about everything I'd been going through. I wasn't ready to rehash the breakup with everyone, but with her, it felt different. It was easier. We met up at a local cafe later that week, and after the usual pleasantries, I let it all spill out. I told her everything about the lies, the hurt, the betrayal, and then I told her something that had been on my mind for days. I don't know if I'll ever trust someone like I trusted him again. Maya listened intently, her hand on mine. "You don't need to rush into trusting anyone, especially after what you've been through. But don't let what happened with him define how you see every man you meet in the future." Her words stuck with me. I didn't need to be afraid of the future. I didn't need to let this betrayal ruin everything. What Adam didn't change who I was. It didn't define my ability to love or be loved. Over the next few months, I slowly began to open up to the idea of dating again, but it wasn't out of desperation or loneliness. I wasn't looking for someone to fill the void Adam left. Instead, I wanted to meet someone who saw me for who I was, not for the woman I had been in relation to someone else. I went on a few dates, but none of them felt right. Each time I walked away, I reminded myself that it was okay not to find the one right away. I wasn't in a rush to settle down. I was building myself back up, brick by brick, and I wasn't going to let anyone rush me into something I wasn't ready for. One day, a few months after the breakup, I got an unexpected message from Adam. It was a simple text. I've been thinking about everything. I've made mistakes, and I understand why you left. I'm really sorry. I stared at the message for a long time, the words sinking in, stirring up emotions I thought I'd already worked through. I felt no rush to respond. I didn't need an apology from him. I'd already let go of the anger. I'd already forgiven him. But it wasn't for him. It was for me. I didn't want to carry the weight of that bitterness anymore. So I didn't respond. I didn't feel the need to. The message wasn't going to change anything. It wasn't going to rewrite what had happened. A few more months went by, and I moved forward. I grew more independent, more self-sufficient. I learned to rely on myself, to be content with my own company. I wasn't looking for validation anymore. I wasn't searching for someone else to complete me. One day, I met someone new. His name was Jack. We met through mutual friends, and it wasn't love at first sight. It was just easy. We talked, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. There was no pressure, no expectations, just a genuine connection. I didn't rush into anything. I didn't make him my entire world like I had done with Adam. I kept building my life, kept focusing on my career, and kept nurturing the friendships that mattered most. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole again.